So, you know, I just had this conversation about how if somebody loves somebody but they don't like them, you know, I don't think you can love somebody without liking them a little bit, because if you don't like them, you don't even want to be around them at all, you know. You don't even want to talk to them. There's stuff you fell in love with. You can't like everything about everybody. Everybody has different interests, you know. There's some junk. Look at that brick out of place. You know, even in the bloodline, you might love your bloodline, but you might not like them. I think God made it that way, in a way, in so many situations. You're not going to like, after you get a certain age, you get set in your ways, you know. But it's mainly like the video I'm getting ready to upload before I upload this one. God doesn't want you to worship a person, place, or thing, or hobby, or anything. And after you go around enough cycles, you get tired of this place, you know. You've seen the same stock market crash. You've seen the same political lies. You've seen the same medical lies. You've seen the same school lies. You've seen the same repeat. And yeah, I went to Subway and got me some food, and I was sitting down there. I got to the point where I just can't stand music, but I was sitting there at the Subway table and the different music was on, and something just clicked in my mind. So about 20 years ago, it clicked in my mind that I don't like, maybe about 10 years ago, it clicked in my mind, I just don't want to hear music. I don't want to hear anybody putting words in my mouth. But then once I got to source code, then today it clicked, you know, music's not bad. It just gives you a variety at life. So whenever you hit source code, that's no different than that. Everything comes back to source. Everything goes back to source. And so the variety in life is the variety in life is off when you know that everything is the same from source, but then you have a variety. So there's a brown color and a yellow color. So the variety in life, different skills, jobs, people, places, things, music, TV shows, whatever, it's still the same. Once you see the fractal, it's all the same, but having a variety kind of is a distraction. Once you hit source code, everything becomes monotonous down here, and it's just worship service. But then a year or two later, after you hit source, you start to say, oh, I can still enjoy it. I can enjoy a Ford car or a Chevrolet or a Honda, because the variety, it's like, because I was sitting there eating and I was thinking, last week I was sitting there at that same store thinking, so I got this sub sandwich and I got these chips. If I didn't have the chips, the sub sandwich would get old. So as I'm chewing on the sub sandwich, I eat some chips. And then when I eat chips, that gets old, I go back to the sub sandwich. And then that gets old and I drink my tea, you know? So the variety of life down here in the 3D takes away the monotony. For about 6 months, I had some lower back pain. I thought it was a pulled muscle or something. And last week, I doubled down on the magnesium, and boom, the pain is gone. So I ate some pineapple and magnesium, and the pain went away. So even studying medical, different chemicals are good for you, you know, different fruits. The variety of life is great, you know. So back to the man and the woman thing. Yeah, the man thinks different than the woman thinks different, but it's part of the variety of life. So as you get older, you might go through a phase where, let's say a man has been married to a woman for 20 years and they know each other, they both get tired of each other or something. And then a year or two goes by and they realize, you know, I can see the different variety of life in the other person. So then the spark, you know, when you're young, it's the romantic thing. And then when you get older, you could say, well, the spark comes back to get to know them as a friend or a spiritual person or whatever. If you get to know a person spiritually and they start to grow spiritually, they never get old. They never get boring. If you have a friend or a wife or a spouse or whatever you want to say, if you have a spouse and they start to grow spiritually, they never get old. They become your best friend, you know. But if it's just all about 3D and poor pitiful me and the same repeat and same routine, go out Friday night, you go to the bowling alley or whatever, do something totally different. Learn a new skill and learn to paint, learn to sew. Do something different. Go to the park, get in a canoe, ride a bike, get healthy. So a man thinks different than a woman, so why not enjoy the variety of life is my point. So there's a phase that everybody goes through. Somebody might not like you for a while. And then they see you 5 years later and they say, oh, I remember why we were friends, you know. They might miss have that friendship. Everything gets old. Where you live, your job. Like here's a good example. So if you've been on the job a while, it really can get old and you just do the same thing every day. But it's not about the job, it's about the internal. You can become a new person. You can become a new creature. And even if you change jobs, still the same, it could be worse. It's going to become monotonous just like anything else. So it's really an internal. And like I said, it's always internal, not external. And so if the internal changes, I can walk by this curb 1,000 times, but if I grow spiritually, I say, wait a minute, that curb represents curbing sin. The black top is the sin. The curb is white. The righteousness of Christ curbs sin. That's why a double yellow line is double cross. The yellow is the cross, you know. And so you start to see things you never saw before if you start to meditate. And I would say it would get really old just watching football every weekend or basketball or not doing anything different. Even if you play darts every day, you got you a dart board and you're just throwing darts, that's going to get old. Everything gets old. So another person might get old, but you can reframe it and say, oh, there's a variety of life in that person. And if you really listen to them and listen to where they're coming from, you'll realize maybe there's parts of that person you never knew, and you get to know the person more and more and become more friendly, you know, and become the friendship you might thought you lost. Now you become friends again. The love you might thought you lost, you might fall in love again. Just like this car is different than this car. I actually like this car better for rideshare, but I like this car. for doing my construction work. I don't really like either one of them, but they have their role. I don't even like a car. I don't even like driving anymore. I wish I could just teleport everywhere I needed to go. I don't like riding in a car. I'd rather ride a bicycle. But even a bicycle would get old. So the variety of life, food, conversations, different things have a different meaning, you know. I mean, it gives you a different variety in life, you know. That's all I want to say.